Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast. And welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
What was the creepiest thing you've ever seen while just out for a normal walk? I saw a man shapeshift into a kid. He had an Afghan scarf made out of smoke while he was morphing and had a drag of a cigarette while he was doing so. My eyes felt like my cornea got pulled on while looking at him. I was sober, but have a history of psychosis and schizophrenia.
Not really a walk, but this happened 2 weeks ago and I have no idea what to make of it. Be me, Florida, anon, relaxing in chairs with friend outside his trailer. We're sober, maybe 2 p.m., no clouds, perfect weather. On the ground between us, which was empty the entire time I was there, we both hear and see an explosion. The best way to describe it is that for one frame, a clear glass bottle exploded. There was no bottle there before, nowhere it could have come from, and nobody within sight that could have thrown it. I then heard the sound of shattered glass hitting the metal siding of the trailer, and felt some bounce off my jeans. But one frame later there was nothing, no sound, no glass or any hint, anything had been there. We spent probably 2 hours on our hands and knees looking for something as small as a single piece of glass, bottle cap, just a scrape on the ground or anything. We never find so much as a grain of clear sand. The dust on the ground where it was had been somehow completely undisturbed. Think that super dry dust that's a grain size even finer than a flower. As little as stepping in it once makes a small cloud, and you can see the wind even move it. Not one rivulet, indentation, line or scrape disturbing any of the dirt within 5 feet around it. The best way to describe how the bottle looked for that fraction of a second was a glass Coca-Cola bottle with no label. Narrow at the neck and fluted, like 1960s Coke bottles without a label or cap. What the hell do you even do with a story like that? I struggled to even come up with a schizoid explanation. No idea, even cartoonishly weird ideas. I should note I was looking at the area it happened at when it did. He didn't get a great look at it, but I saw it perfectly. Pick-related identical bottle.
Someone threw a bottle, yes. But not in your reality or dimension, so to say. You saw a glimpse of it and it was totally gone, right? Think ghosts. When you see one, it's only for a short time and they're gone. You saw what happened in the same place, but at a different time.
It's a moment of charged energy sent through time. The bottle probably exploded or was thrown and it traumatized a child, and they sent a time warp of that fear into the future.
In 2016, my girlfriend and I were walking on Queen Street, Melbourne, and 2 homeless dudes got into a knife fight. One guy gutted the other and ran away in a busy crowd. The thing is, a week prior I had a premonition in a dream of that exact thing happening. It felt like a compilation of key events of that day, including a vision of a group of young fellas walking past us with distinct accents, and one where the men wore an AC/DC graphic t-shirt and we made eye contact walking past each other. Anyway, here's my girlfriend and I walking along Queen Street, and I'm getting a bit overwhelmed now that the things I've dreamed about are all playing out in sequence. AC/DC guy walked past me, and we made eye contact the exact same way. His friends were standing exactly how I dreamed it. A few minutes later, I tell my girlfriend I need to sit down because now I'm lightheaded and my nose is bleeding. I had common nosebleeds at the time. Roughly 5 minutes later, we continued, and lo and behold, the crowd of people we were walking with were now ahead, walking towards 2 homeless dudes fighting. Knife crime takes place where we would have been. Look at the homeless dudes, yep, exactly like the dream. He runs away and everything. My girlfriend still doesn't believe me.
2018. Just moved to the countryside. Very nice neighborhood. Strange shit rarely happens. More old people compared to last place we lived. Plenty of shops about 500 meters from home providing basic needs. Just the right distance for shopping on foot because fuck obesity. Nearest store owned and tended by elderly couple. Probably 5, 6 years younger than ma grandma. 90% of the time I pass them, they'll smile whenever I greet them. The remaining instances, they stare. Like really sharp stares, almost a glare. And my grandma's also kind of weird sometimes. She's 80 years old. So whatever. 3 years later, my curiosity got the best of me. Decided to ask what's that all about the next time they stare at me. Took almost 2 weeks since that plan hatched. One cloudy Saturday afternoon. Walking to the store right next to them. Yes, they're staring. Still can't believe I said that, kick. They're staring right into my soul. Look around. Nobody cares. First step taken. No reaction, still staring. Second step. Still nothing. Move to the side. Their gazes follow. Fark decided to muster up my balls and ask, excuse me, sir and ma'am. No response, just a blink. Shit, woo TF do I say now? Fuck it. I noticed that sometimes you two are staring at me, just like now. Is there something wrong, sir and ma'am? Dead silence. Not like I didn't expect it, though. Suddenly, a woman came. They instantly snapped their gazes towards her, smiling. And they greeted me like nothing happened. Realized the woman knows them well. Ask her what their staring means. She stared at my face for what seems like a whole minute. Didn't bring a watch or phone. Oh, it's because you're something else. Boy, am I jealous of you, she said, followed by her laughter. And the couple's laughter. But it's the kind of weak type of laughter. Imagine Dark Souls 2 when you choose Deprived as your class. Mate, this ain't Dranglic WTF are you on about. Decided to leave while confused to death. Not really scary, but damn is it strange.
I saw an old woman vomit up a chunk of red meat once. I live in a city with a lot of homeless and was walking home from work. I don't take the bus, but passed a bus stop on the way, with this lady sitting on the bench under the bus stop awning. The lady was either old or just really rough-looking, dressed like a common washed-up hooker, way too revealing for her age. Stringy thin hair, really skinny, leathery tan skin, common druggy attributes. I come within 8-ish feet of her, and she doubles over and yaks up a huge chunk of something, like a cat spitting out a hairball. Like her back is rounded, and she's hiking her shoulders up, like she's trying to force it out, and she lobs this thick chunk of what looks like an uncut, gooey, thick raw steak onto the floor with some bile and smaller chunks that look like regular vomit. I start walking faster to pass her and step around the mess, and the smell is horrible, like actual rancid garbage, like a smell that shouldn't be able to come from a person. It smelled like rot. She didn't acknowledge me the whole time, and I just kept walking. I haven't thought about that in a long time. I really do think she lobbed up some internal tissue or something. Before you ask, why didn't you call for help or ask if she was okay? I hate the homeless.
I live near a university campus that I walk around a lot at night, and there's one night that scared the shit out of me. 9 p.m. Walking around university and going into random buildings. There are very few people around because it's summer. Decide to go back home through a park. Nobody in the park. No cars anywhere near the park or in any driveway. The entire neighborhood is completely empty. 10 minutes of walking past and a car starts driving up the road. The car pulls up right next to me and stops. Guy in the car stares at me and doesn't say a word. I start walking faster and get onto the road perpendicular to my house. The car at the stop sign slows when turning. An old-ass woman rolls down her window and waves at me. I've never seen this person before. I look down and book it for my house. Get in as fast as possible and lock the door. I couldn't sleep that night. This has never happened to me since. No events were happening around here, and typically there are a lot of cars driving on those roads as they lead to the closest grocery store.
I was walking home from work one time after a night shift on a completely desolate road at 2:55 in the morning. A strange woman pulled up in a Jeep next to me and asked me if I had seen the hanged girl yet. I said I hadn't, and she got angry and drove off. It was a very intense walk to the train station after that.
That's creepy. You didn't end up seeing her after that, did you?
No, I didn't. I got the impression that the woman was very mentally ill. After I told her I hadn't seen the hanged girl, she told me to fuck off then, and angrily drove off. It left me really on edge, though. It doesn't help that the place where I worked had a really strange vibe. It was a newly built industrial area with many modern and tall buildings, but it was built in the middle of nowhere in quite a rural spot. Since all the buildings were offices and factories, they would be entirely vacant during the night, as nobody actually lived there. There were almost no streetlights. The road I was walking on was at the edge of this area, so to the right of me were tall, dark, looming buildings, and to the left of me was this impenetrable black void of empty fields. The train station wasn't so much a station as a single concrete platform where a train would briefly stop once during the night. I would have to wait at this platform for 50 minutes during the night, completely alone, with no staff or other travelers anywhere to be seen. I would read to pass the time, and once I felt something brushing my leg, only to find it was a wild fox. When I saw her headlights, I immediately got nervous because nobody drives in that area at that time of night, and when she started slowing down next to me, I almost shit myself. I was briefly relieved when I saw it was a middle-aged woman and not a serial killer. But when she asked me if I'd seen the hanged girl, I was immediately on edge again. The whole place felt like what the Zoomers would call a liminal space. Pick-related.
The town I grew up in has a river running through it, and on one side of the river is a paved bike trail, and on the other side is an unpaved utilities road. I used to wander on the unpaved side and explore the abandoned buildings. One day, as a young lad of maybe 11 years old, I was exploring back there and found a trail leading off from a derelict brick building into the woods. I followed it for 50 yards and decided to climb a small tree to see if I could see anything. I saw a man in flannel and a beard walking slowly down the trail, coming out of the woods, maybe another 50 yards away. I said, "Hey there," from out of the tree, but he didn't respond. I tried to wave, but he didn't wave back. I decided to get out of the tree and run rather than wait and see if he wanted to torture or murder me. I sprinted out of there, and knowing the way to the paved road, I scrambled up a hill. I slowed down to catch my breath and heard footsteps not far from my position, so I kept running until I got to the road. I never went back there alone.
When I was little, I had about 5 occasions where I thought I saw the silhouette of massive figures with piercing eyes, all abnormally tall, upwards of 7 to 9 feet tall. One jet black with red eyes standing in front of a gravestone when I was riding the bus to school one early morning. Its body was translucent, and you could see its bright red eyes from the opposite direction it faced. When I noticed it, the eyes became more solid, like it felt me noticing it. Once our eyes locked, I got very drowsy and fell asleep the rest of the bus ride. Another occasion, a giant glowing green figure with piercing yellow eyes stepped out of my closet when I was little. The green was almost like radiation, where it seemed like the color was pulsating and bleeding off of it, gradually fading in and out. I saw it creak the closet door open. It was so tall it had to duck its head under the top of the door frame to step out. When it stood fully up, it locked eyes with me, as if shocked I could see it. Instinctively, I tried to scream with all my might, but no sound would come out. I tried so hard to cry for my parents who were in the room across from mine, but nothing. I told my grandfather this story recently, and he coined the phrase, "The witch is riding you," which is apparently a superstitious belief of this phenomenon. Trying to cry out but being unable to, as if you're being suppressed. Eventually, the figure dematerialized with the closet door gently closing itself. Immediately, I screamed at the top of my lungs. My parents rushed in to console me. You know the usual. "It's just the dark." They read me chapters of my kids' Bibles, and we all got down and prayed on the side of the bed. I have no history of mental illness, nor does it run in my family. Years later, as an adult, I would come to learn about the reptilian conspiracy rabbit hole. These childhood memories are the one thing that give me pause when I look into it.
I wasn't walking, but I was driving in my neighborhood really early in the morning while the sun was still down when I came across the intersection behind my house. There was this guy standing at the end of the driveway at the house behind mine. He was standing with his back facing me, and he didn't move a muscle either, despite my headlights clearly shining on him. It was almost like a doll or a dummy because of how still he was. He didn't look real, if that makes sense. I didn't want to get involved in whatever he was doing, so I turned and drove off. It wasn't a very long interaction either, so I couldn't really get a good look at him. It wouldn't have been as scary except for the fact that it was so close to my house. Never saw him, or had any similar interactions since, but it still gives me chills thinking about it.
Not exactly to me, and while taking a walk, but happened recently, and it's been bugging me. On a normal night, I dream of being with my friends after drinking at night. Weird, since my dreams are usually full of fantasy or creepy nonsense. A week later, I met with my friends again. They told me one of them was freaking out that night. I had that dream. They say he was hallucinating that I was there with them. We all joke that he was too drunk and needs to stop drinking. Don't tell friends about my dream because they'll think I'm just messing around.
Something similar happened to me with my best friend. I can't remember how my dream started, but I remember being in my bedroom talking to him. Suddenly he says, "Anon, there's an angel in your room." I wake up to a flash of light in my room, and I cannot move. My back's towards the light, but it's so bright that I'm almost blinded. When I can finally move, it's gone. The next day, I called my best friend and told him that I had a weird dream. Before I can even say anything about it, he tells me that he dreamed he was transported to my room, and for a while, we were just talking. All of a sudden, he realizes there's an angel in my room and says, "Anon, there's an angel in your room." He woke up as well, but there was nothing where he was. He was over an hour away from my house at my old college campus when this happened. I wasn't freaked out when it happened, but I do remember feeling such a rush of energy when the light flashed in my room. It was a mixture of awe and fear.
You were lucky. This time it was behind your back, so you couldn't see what was really there. Your body reacted naturally to prevent you from coming to harm. Next time, you might not be so lucky again. Just remember, don't look at it. If you do, then you won't come back here to tell your story anyway.
I kinda got the feeling that I shouldn't have looked anyway. The energy felt incredibly powerful. This was back in 2019. Nothing of that caliber has happened since. I don't remember a message or any specific feeling after it left. In fact, my life drastically became worse and worse until I finally crawled out of the pit I had dug for myself. I still do not understand why I was visited.
Not creepy, but once while I was out on a job, back when I did landscaping, I heard a distant noise. There was a pop, distant gunfire, then a second pop, followed by rapid pops, and then a kind of alarm went off like the bell in a school, and I could hear kids screaming. It sounded so fucking real. Rapid, loud gunshots, alarms, kids screaming. It couldn't have just been the blank guns they have to scare birds from vineyards. I was actually so convinced that I was checking the news that entire day for a school shooting, and it never happened. So I don't know what the fuck happened.
More of a lurker here, but I'll give it a shot. Be me. Around 16, 17 years old, chit-chatting with my neighbors and parents, mostly listening, adult talk, taxes, inflation, third world country copium, etc. Look at the stars. Yo, what the hell, one just moved. Excuse me, what is that point towards the moving star? Probably a satellite, Anon. That's way too fast for a satellite. Must be a plane then, a jet. Nah, too far and just one light. Looks like a star. No way that's a plane. Suddenly it changes into some triangle shaped and moves at high speed. Shout, that shit ain't a plane. After a few minutes, another one pops up, starts dancing with another star. More like a pattern, or as if the first one is being followed. High speed can be followed with the eyes, but really fast for what my knowledge of shit in space can get. After looking at it with family and neighbors for around 5 minutes, the objects make a few more moves around in space. Suddenly, whoosh, they just flick out with a little trail of light. Brick shits, because we may have experienced what UFO enthusiasts have been creaming for over 5 decades. Mom is spooked, believer, neighbors too. Even my dad seems kinda unnerved, does not believe. Maybe we should go inside, as if that can stop their probes. After that, I just felt tiny and ignorant. I kind of fear aliens, but feel fascinated about the concept of life outside the planet and unknown life inside the planet or in the water. A few days ago, I saw the same shit I described. Pretty cool, I guess.
Which country?
Argentina. Tons of sightings here. If you travel by bus from province to province, there is always the odd light in the night sky doing its thing. To be honest, I believe they are way too common, but people just don't look at the stars too much, me included. Also, light pollution makes it really hard. I have a few more encounters like that, some dreams with aliens, and the girl that says she's my girlfriend since I was 13 in my dreams. Creepy shit right there.
I've seen a similar one twice on clear dark nights, but only ever one at a time. But they were moving in all sorts of directions and at some sharp angles. I was watching one visible from a path in the fields and woods with some friends for a few minutes, and it was doing loops, changing speed. When it's brought up, we still have to say, if it wasn't aliens, then we have no other theories. Couldn't be a projectile or any normal aircraft in normal use. It just looked like a star, but like it had sprung a leak and was whizzing around like a balloon. This was in northern England.
A few years ago, I was walking down a sidewalk to my car parked on the side of the street. Early evening hours, the sun is just starting to set. Walking towards my car from behind, I notice that there is no car parked behind me, but there is one in front of me. I walk across the empty space behind my car, get in, and put the car in reverse. I didn't look in my rear view because I knew the space behind me was empty, and I just wanted to get a little space to easily clear the car in front of me. I reverse just a couple of feet and bump into a car. Think, how the hell did someone park in the couple of seconds that I got in and started my car? Get out to talk to the person I had just hit, but nobody is in the car. Look up and down the street, but there is nobody to be seen. I have never tapped another car before or since then. Still can't figure out how I made the assessment that there was an entire empty space behind me when I walked right through that space from the sidewalk to the driver's side door. I checked both cars for 5 minutes and couldn't find any damage to either, so I just took off.
Used to live in LA, and seeing mentally disturbed homeless people are probably the worst thing I've seen. Seeing them yelling at nothing, laughing for no reason. Glad I'm far from there since last year. It seems really easy to fracture the mind because there's so many just like that. Feels like we're all just walking on thin strings in terms of physical fragility that can rip at any time.
Downtown LA is a soul graveyard where you gotta be hard or get jacked.
I moved out of LA a year and a half ago, and as much as I love it, as it is my actual birthplace, it's beyond saving, and has been this way since at least 2009 and up. It was hell before, but tolerable hell. It really stumps me how all of these silver spoon morons from the Midwest or East Coast still pile into that city in droves and think they can fix or reclaim anything by trying to perform necromancy via gentrification. I'll never get it.
In the middle of nowhere, Central Florida, with a new girlfriend, now fiancé, on a walk in a woods. Early on in the hike, prevent girlfriend and her dog from stepping on a venomous coral snake on the trail. Out and back trail that ends in a pier that goes into a swamp. We watch the sunset together before starting to head back. As we walk down the boardwalk ramp, her dog suddenly starts chasing something. Can never quite see what he's chasing as we run after him. Suddenly, he takes a sharp right off the trail and into the woods. Immediately after he takes off into the woods, a single deer hops into view from the left and starts staring at us. Begin hearing loud machine noises of what must have been an airboat. Night is falling. My girlfriend's cries for her dog make everything very eerie. Loud machine noises crescendoing over and over, and the deer continues to stare at us. Finally get the deer to go and a few others follow it. Fully nighttime now. Her dog finally limps back to us after what must have been 30 minutes. He looks shaken up, and he is not present in his gaze when you look at him. Pick him up and run back 1.5 miles to our car. As we run back, we hear loud rustling following us alongside the trail, almost the entire way back, in addition to the loud machine noises. Very weird and spooky night. We had been experiencing a lot of synchronicities and small weird happenings like doors closing and things falling over in our place that had been stable as a whole. We took her dog to a vet who suspected he was bitten by a coral snake, so we drove like 4.5 hours away to Gainesville, where they could give him anti-venom if he did get bit, as no one else in the state would give him any. The researchers there didn't think he needed it but gave it to him anyway. Could have been venom or possessed. I don't know, it's a very weird situation where he seemed completely shaken up and then just fine. Maybe a will-o-wisp spirit brought him to a coral snake. He didn't seem to be chasing anything visible.
I was walking home from the corner store and this older guy was in the middle of the road. Pretty busy road, 40 miles per hour, traffic lights at the intersection. And aggressively approaching every car that drove by and screaming at them. I couldn't make out what he was saying, but I ducked down a side street so I didn't have to go near him. The next morning I looked at the local news website on a whim, and there was a story that last night a police car was going down that intersection and creamed someone, and it was being considered self-end by cop. Drove down that same road later that day, and it looked like the aftermath wasn't fully cleaned up. Big obvious red stain right where I saw the guy yelling.
It was actually yesterday. I was out on a walk up a hill near my house. It's about 2 miles from my house to the top, and I'm about halfway up the hill. I'm fairly tired but invigorated by the wind and the colors. It was close to sunset. If you've never been in Arizona and seen the sunset over the mountains, book a trip to Sedona now. Got the strange feeling that I was being watched. Not like being watched by birds and rabbits, which I know the feeling of, but like being watched by something hostile for the rest of the way up. There were only bugs, none of the normal chittering from the birds or the yammering of coyotes in the distance. It was dead silent, except for the wind. I hung out there for about 30 minutes. Then the animals started making noise again. It was as I was walking down, though, I heard some coyotes getting mouthy behind me. You know the deal. I look down the slope and see something that looks like a deer. I shout at it, then get higher pitched like a coyote. It doesn't move. I assumed it was a bare spot in some scrub oak or maybe a rock. But that feeling came back, and I thought that maybe I should get the hell out. I got the hell out. I might go back up today to see if it's still there. If it's significant. It smelled like flowers and juniper up there. A nice smell, but unnerving, if nothing else.
Your mom, but for real, I didn't see this myself. But my dad was out camping with his friends about 12 or 13 years ago. A big campground with lots of people staying there. He and his friends were coming back from the beach around 3 a.m. and when they were walking through a more secluded part of the park back to the campsite, they saw a group of 10 or 15 people all dressed in white and black gowns in the woods doing some sort of ritual. Never came across anything weird or creepy out on my night walks when I used to go out every night, though. Came across a drunk one time on an overpass. He was passed out. I checked on him to make sure he was good. We ended up hanging out and talking for a good 2 or 3 hours, smoking ciggies, and he was telling me about when he was homeless and gave me some good tips to make a few dollars while living on the streets. Always remember this one. Go to a bar, buy a drink and watch the tips on the counter, put a beer bottle over the coins and pull the bottle towards the edge of the counter and let the coins fall into your lap. That dude was pretty based. I hope he's doing well these days.
Be me, 17, summer, GF dumped me, first heartbreak, etc. Developed insomnia. Can't fall asleep for a couple days at a time. One night, 4 a.m., I was up for 72 hours. Hallucinations getting annoying. Large spider legs in the periphery. Ran cross-country, say fuck it, and decide to go on a 4-mile run to exhaust myself into sleeping. Running through Florida suburbs, hallucinating what I thought were people but ended up being a stop sign when I got closer. Saw a police helicopter flying around. At least 3 cop cars drove past me, but nothing came of it. See this huge deer in the median. For some reason I slow down, say hello, approach the deer and pet its shoulder. Continue on my run. Make it home to shower and finally fall asleep. Tell my friends what happened. They all think I hallucinated the deer. I definitely felt a tactile sensation petting the deer. Still not sure if I was actually some kind of forest druid that night. Still go on night runs, but it's never been the same.
Renovating a house in a woods, 10 acres of land, living there while doing it. No TV or internet, so after work I sit on the porch listening to the radio or reading while crushing darts. Porch light only illuminates the porch and can barely see anything 10 feet off of it. Really hot and humid night, but there is a breeze taking the humidity away a bit. All of a sudden the breeze stops. Insects and birds all go silent. Feels like something is breathing on my neck. I feel pins and needles all over my body. Putrid smell like bad breath washes over me. Hear what sounds like hooves clomping around clumsily, probably 50 feet to my right. Hear a really loud screech that sounds like when a dog yawned, but it echoes throughout the land. I give a side eye as I instinctively don't want it to know its presence is known. See a silhouette of a buck or a horse or something standing on its hind legs. Get up and casually walk inside. Look out the window in the direction it was, but all I see is the darkness of night. I mentioned it to the homeowner. She grew up in the house and recently inherited it. I expected her to be like, "Oh, don't be silly" type of thing, but she just looked at me blankly and said, "Oh, not officially in Appalachia, but near it in the Niagara region."
This happened last autumn. Go for a night walk since it's finally the perfect temperature for one. Walking up a road a block from my house. Go past someone's house on the right side. Suddenly I hear singing and laughing, like an ethereal and young female voice singing, coming from their driveway. Look down the driveway. It leads past their house behind an apartment complex. Street light is on behind the complex. See a single female deer standing there, staring at me. Singing and laughter stops when I look at her. She runs off, and I continue my walk. Didn't see any other people either, just the deer. Very weird.
I remember Siberian Anon was talking about one night in the year when animals can talk, but if they find out that you heard them, they will kill you.
I was walking to the convenience store once. When I lived in Los Angeles, we lived in this apartment block, and there was an Arab store on the corner. We used to go down there and get chips and soda and candy, cigarettes or whatever. One night I was walking back home from the store, and I had a bag full of snacks because a game just came out. I think it was World of Warcraft Big Expansions. I saw this homeless lady. She was really, really high on something. She was talking to herself and mumbling something. She was sitting up against a brick wall in the corner with her sleeping bag and Walmart bags of garbage and shit. All of a sudden, she starts getting up and crawling up the side of the wall backwards. She made it like 4 or 5 feet up the wall before she fell down onto her shit and started hitting herself in the face. I never ran so fucking fast in my goddamn life.
I swear I experienced a Dante's Hell moment some years ago. I was in downtown LA, and I was trying to meet up with a friend at one of those spiffy, gentrified bars in a prolapsed asshole part of town. I crossed one street, saw a dead chihuahua from the looks of it near the curb. I cross another street, I see a youngish girl, white, probably in her 30s, with one eye literally smoking a glass crack pipe on the steps of a shut-down business. I cross another, and there's a smaller building I have to go around, and it was a church, I think. All the iconography was around, but all the people out front looked like serial killers, and the music coming from within didn't really sound like gospel, more like weird classical that was warped. Anyway, nothing happened to me, thankfully, but it was such a weird fever dream experience.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more Greentext will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.
Remember to check the Odyssey and Rumble pages for separate archives of previous broadcasts.